Very excited. We're going to start with Dr. Steve Skinner with the Greenwood Genetic Center.
Thank you. I am a clinical geneticist and the director of the Greenwood Genetic Center, and it's my pleasure to welcome you first to Greenwood, but particularly to the Greenwood Genetic Center. I want to thank the Department of Education and the Education Oversight Committee. We are extremely excited to be partnering with you, not only in this conference, but other activities that hopefully you'll be hearing more about as we go forward. And I'm very excited to be able to share with you a little bit about the Greenwood Genetic Center, but also our collaboration with Project Hope Foundation and some of the great things that we have planned with that collaboration as well. So I'm just going to give a very brief overview about the center. I'm going to very briefly mention perhaps the Center for Human Genetics, which is our collaboration with Clemson University, and just with that is still kind of in its infancy stage, but hopefully that will be even greater resources in the future to help with both research and educational activities in the future. And then I'll just briefly mention our partnership campus as well, as far as potential for attracting even additional resources for both research and education purposes. So this is an aerial view of our campus. We're in this building in the auditorium right now. This is our research institute and conference center. We also have our clinical facilities, diagnostic labs in the South Carolina Center for Treatment of Genetic Disorders, our administration, IT, billing offices here, and then Alita's Education Center, which hopefully you'll get a chance to maybe see a little bit today. But I'll talk a little bit more about that in a minute. And just to orient you, this is the new Clemson building, which is, I'm not going to say much more than that this is the Center for Human Genetics, which is a growing collaborative to increase the research capacity in human genetics and also increase the educational opportunities, particularly for graduate students and undergraduate students. And then I wanted to point out a lot of these woods that you see here is about 170 acres that our foundation owns as part of the partnership campus, where we hope to attract other academic and industry partners. So Clemson is the first, where we would like to see these 170 acres filled with partners that help us both on our diagnostic, research, and educational activities. And I'll show this one. There's downtown Greenwood there. And in the next 3 to 5 years, there will be a direct connection from Main Street to this research park, which will make access to our campus a little easier, but also I think will stimulate growth of this partnership campus, both for academic and industry partners, but also housing, graduate students, and other retail opportunities. So just a quick overview of the campus, but I also want to emphasize that though we're in Greenwood on our main campus, we are a statewide organization. We have offices in Greenville, Columbia, North Charleston, and Florence, with staff there to serve patients and other resources they need. We also do a lot of outreach. Teal dots represent locations where we've done outreach clinics in the past. We still do those even in the regional offices. They also really could represent where our educational outreach is, because Lita and her mobile lab go all over the state. I think they were in 31 different counties last year in the state. I think that will expand this year with some support from the Department of Education and the Education Oversight Committee. So just briefly, from a historical standpoint, we're about 43 years old now. We were founded by collaboration between the South Carolina Department of Disabilities and Special Needs, and it's been a great relationship for us. It also, though, is important that has shaped a lot of our emphasis on intellectual disabilities and autism, and so that's why we're very involved and engaged and interested in what's happening in autism, both from a research and a services standpoint. We were also founded through collaborations with the Self Family Foundation, and that's important because that's why we're in Greenwood and not in Columbia or Charleston or Greenville, because they were and have continued to be a major supporter of our activities. Briefly, I'll just highlight the broad mission that we have. One is we provide clinical genetic services, so we see patients that have or suspect they might have a genetic disorder. Most of our patients are pediatric. Most of them have intellectual disability, birth defects, or autism, but we do see prenatal patients cancer patients, and adult onset disorder. So we see ourselves as a resource for the state, providing services across the whole state. In addition to seeing patients, we have a diagnostic lab that does testing in the realm of molecular or DNA or gene sequencing tests, as well as cytogenetics, looking at chromosomes under the microscope, as well as biochemical or metabolic testing. We serve not only our patients, but physicians across the state and really across the country and a little bit around the world for some of the testing we do. I want to spend more time a little bit on the educational division and mission. Lita Tribble heads that up. It's a very broad mission that she has. It ranges all the way from STEM education activities with middle school and high school students both here on our campus and through her mobile lab, a 40-foot bus that travels around the state to engage students in science and particularly in genetics. She also has a lot of educational programs for teachers, for the lay public, for healthcare professionals. So she's quite busy on a variety of different levels. She also is doing both in-person educational activities and online educational activities. And then she also helps coordinate our undergraduate internships during the summer, our graduate student activities, and our training programs, which we have training programs in both in laboratory genetics and clinical genetics. And she wears many hats and is quite busy in doing all that. And then you'll hear more about our research in medical genetics. Autism is one of the main areas of interest and focus here at the Greenwood Genetic Center. The other intellectual disability disorders and birth defects is also an area of interest. So, again, I've kind of mentioned this, but because of our relationship with the Department of Disabilities and Special Needs, we've had a focus from the very beginning, not only clinically, but from a diagnostic standpoint and a research standpoint in intellectual disabilities, birth defects, and autism. So, why are we focused on autism? Lisa kind of hinted at this, I guess, a little bit with the doubling of the number of students in the school system. But the prevalence rate of autism has just dramatically increased since I started my pediatric practice some 30 plus years ago. 1 in 68 children now are being diagnosed with autism, 1 in 42 males. You can argue whether this is because we've changed the definition, broadened the definition to a spectrum disorder, whether it's because we're more aware, we're looking more, but I think, my opinion, that there actually is an increased incidence of patients that we are seeing that fall within this autism spectrum. So it is a major issue for society, it's a major issue for families, and it's important that we try to understand why this is happening and also eventually come to some understanding of what we can do to help these individuals and these families with autism. So why do we think we can have any role in this? I won't go through all of these, but there's a lot of lines of evidence that suggest there is a genetic component to autism. So we think that we should be looking to try to understand the genetics of autism, and that is how we originally got engaged through some projects with Southbound Department of Disabilities Special Needs back in the mid-1990s. We went around the state and enrolled about 200 individuals with autism, looking to try to determine the genetic cause for autism. We were about as successful as everyone else. At that time, I think we identified a genetic cause in about 15% of the patients that we saw with autism. We think we may have increased that percentage to maybe 20% with some new technologies. So that means 80% of the time we're not finding a genetic explanation for the cause of autism. Some of what you're going to hear today is our efforts to maybe look outside of traditional genetic approaches, so not just gene sequencing, not just chromosomes and things like that, but looking more at how cells are functioning, metabolism of cells, and how that may be causing autism. I know my personal bias, I think most of those here that are doing this believe that there is a genetic background that puts you at risk for autism. That genetic background may be different in different individuals, but there's also an environmental component that on top of that genetic risk relates to autism. I think the complexity of this is that the genetic background may be different in different individuals, and environmental exposure may be different in different individuals. So I think that helps explain the spectrum of autism, but also makes it more difficult to find a specific cause in an individual with autism, but also more difficult to develop a treatment that's specific for that individual. So it's a complex disorder, but it's also a complex process of trying to determine etiologies and treatment, but that's what we're trying to do. So we have two kind of major overarching goals in our autism program, and you'll hear more about that in just a few minutes. One is try to develop, Luigi will be upset with me, I said a diagnostic blood test, he said a screening blood test, but some sort of objective measure that can diagnose or screen or determine if someone has or is even ultimately at risk to have autism at an earlier age. We still know that autism is not diagnosed as early as it should be. Average age of diagnosis is still a little over 4 years of age in this country. And we know the earlier diagnosed and start intervention, the better those children do. Here's some very encouraging statistics, I think, from Project Hope later about what they can do when you identify these children earlier. So we're working hard to try to find a test that can either screen or diagnose autism. But ultimately, we hope that that understanding and that research that we're doing will lead us to an understanding of the underlying mechanisms or phenomena that are causing autism, or at least related to the causes of autism, that will then eventually point us to treatment. So we are already seeing some things that point us to potential treatments where we might be able to modify the diet or supplements or nutrition or the environment that might have some implications as far as treatment of autism. So that's our major overarching goals and focus when it comes to autism. And then I want to end just by talking just briefly about a collaboration that we're very excited about. And the Greenwood Genetic Center is kind of the medical and genetic research and arm of this collaboration. And Project Hope Foundation is the service arm that's providing a lifespan of services to individuals with autism. Project Hope Foundation is 20 years old now and has been, I think, one of the premier providers of autism services in South Carolina, based mainly in the Greenville-Spartanburg area, but we're very fortunate that we have been able to get them to Greenwood, and we now have a collaboration where we're trying to merge the medical genetic research component of autism with the service provision to try to create a unique model. We're also looking to bring in our local school districts in this to interdigitate services both within the school system and outside the school system as far as greater support services, but also bring in our Piedmont Technical College and Lander University to kind of get a broader approach to training, educating, developing providers, but also a better understanding of the underlying cause of autism, but also a better understanding of best practices and models for providing services to families. With some unique things that we hope to do with telemedicine and other things as well. So we're excited to have Project Hope with us. We're excited to have the Department of Education and Education Oversight Committee, and we're very excited to have you here today. And I'm going to turn it over to Lisa for continuing the program. Thank you.
Thank you.